Hi, I'm Phil Constantine. On this episode of Travels with Phil, we'll be going to the San Jacinto Battleground and Monument. I'll be telling you the background on the historical event which led to this location, why it happened, a look at the area, and a look at the record-setting monument that's there. This is in Texas. So let's take a look at the map here. You can see the city of Houston, and we move off to the east about 22 miles along Buffalo Bayou, or as the locals call it, the Houston Ship Channel, to where it joins the San Jacinto River, and you can see it here on the south side of the channel, and it's a large area out there, mostly flat area, lots of marshy areas, some standing water out there. And let me give you a little bit of the history of what happened here at San Jacinto. Go back with a little background. In 1821, Mexico declared independence, or gained its independence from Spain. And one of the primary figures in the battle between Spain and Mexico was Antonio Lopez de Santa Anna. He got much of his training here during this war. He worked with another general during these conflicts, and this general had a policy of executing rebels. And some folks believe this may have led to Santa Anna's propensity to execute rebels in the Texas Rebellion. Well, eventually, around 1835, Santa Anna was elected president of Mexico, came in on sort of a republic, liberal type for Mexico government. But while he was in government, he decided that Mexico was not ready for democracy, and he became more of an autocrat. Started making a lot of rules and not allowing the provinces to have much say in their self-governance, and this led to a lot of rebellions in the republic or the provinces of the Republic of Mexico. So this is what led to the Texas Revolution, or the Battle for Independence. Many of the people who lived in this part of Texas had come from America, but there were a lot of folks that had already lived there before. And they decided to join together to seek independence from Mexico and become their own republic, or their own country. Sam Houston was the leader of one of these. There were many leaders in the various parts of the Texas military establishment. Most of the people that were fighting these wars, though, were ranchers and farmers. They were not professional soldiers. Now, almost everybody has heard of the Battle of the Alamo. Well, there was another big battle there called Goliad. And it was at this spot that when the Mexican army came in and surrounded a Texas contingent of about 400 to 500 men here, led by Fannin, they captured the Texans, and the Texans thought they'd be treated as prisoners of war. But under the orders of General Santa Anna, or Santana, some people call him, they were executed. And this is why the battle cry of "Remember Goliad" became a popular saying. And again, in the Alamo, no quarter was given to those folks who survived the battle, and they were executed as well. So when the Texans continued to fight the Mexican army, they realized that if they were to lose a battle and become prisoners, they would most likely be executed. Well, General Sam Houston figured that most of his volunteers in his army were ranchers and farmers, and they needed training to be soldiers because the Mexican army had been fighting revolutionaries across Mexico for some time. They were a professional army. So when Santa Anna started heading toward the east, started heading toward the Sabine River, which was the border with the United States, he kept going east so he could train his soldiers. Well, eventually, he had to stop. And this is where the Battle of San Jacinto comes into effect. Santa Anna's forces were chasing him fairly closely, and on April the 20th, they were camped within about a mile of each other. Now, there'd been a couple minor skirmishes, but nothing major. Santa Anna's understanding of major battles was sort of in the European style, where most battles were started at dawn. So when on April 21st, the Texans didn't attack, he just assumed there wasn't going to be any fighting that day. So he basically let his men start doing housekeeping around the camp they had settled here in the San Jacinto area. And in fact, he didn't even really place sentries out there, and many of his people were having siestas or resting because they had been on forced marches, in some cases marching for 24 hours to catch up to Sam Houston's forces. So they were not prepared for a battle. Well, Sam Houston and his people debated whether or not to attack, because they knew they didn't have a lot of men. They didn't have as many men as the Mexican army did, but they noticed that they were basically not even posting sentries. They also camped out on a spot that was surrounded by marshes and was very flat. There were no forests in the area, no real places to hide or go in case they were attacked. And there was a slight ridge before you got to the Mexican forces, and they were surrounded by buffalo grass, which was 4 to 5 feet high in this particular area. So Sam Houston and his forces, which was about 900 men, which was cavalry, infantry, and 2 cannons called the Twin Sisters, which were a gift from the people of Cincinnati, approached the camp. Santa Anna's forces had about 1,200 men, infantry, cavalry, and 1 large cannon called El Volcan, and they were resting. So Sam Houston's forces crept through the tall grass, were very careful when they went over the small ridge that was out there, and basically they got within 70 to 100 yards of the camp before they were noticed. So a few Mexican soldiers saw them approaching when they started getting very, very close, put out a warning, and the Texians, as they were often called, or the Texans or the revolutionaries, attacked. They were running in yelling, "Remember the Alamo, remember Goliad." And in the space of about 20 minutes, most of the fighting was over, and the Mexicans were routed, although the fighting went on for another couple of hours. And as had been the policy of Santa Anna, the Texans took out their revenge and killed many of the people that they took as prisoners. Not all, but many. Well, Santa Anna was not found that day. Santa Anna went into hiding. He changed into the uniform of a private. And he was found the next day and captured and brought back to where the prisoners were being held when the fighting had actually stopped the day before. There were prisoners taken. So Santa Anna was taken in with the rest of the prisoners. But when the prisoners there saw him, they started calling him El Presidente. And eventually some of the folks who knew who Santa Anna was and what he looked like recognized him on the Texan side. And they brought him in to Sam Houston. Sam Houston had been injured during the fighting, and he was recognized, found, taken as a prisoner, realized who he was, and a short time later, negotiations started, and for his life, Santa Anna signed a treaty which gave Texas its independence. And that all happened here at the San Jacinto Battlegrounds, and it happened on April the 21st, 1836. Let's take a look at the monument itself. Originally built with federal funding, or a large chunk of federal funding, there was the implication that it wasn't supposed to be taller than the Washington Monument, which is 555 feet. So the initial plans for the column itself, the building at the base, and the star brought it up to 549 feet, which is just about 6 feet shorter than the Washington Monument. However, Texas having to be a little bit bigger in all things, no one said exactly where the measurements were supposed to come from. So they built 2 terraces on the bottom. And as you can see with the picture here, if you count from the base of the tower in the building, it's 549 feet. But if you include the 2 terraces that it sits on, it's 567 feet, which puts it about 12 feet higher than the Washington Monument, and in both cases, it's the largest freestanding tower in the world. As an example, you can look at the Statue of Liberty. The statue itself is a certain height, and the pedestal it sits on is also a certain height, so when you put them together, it's taller, obviously, than the statue itself. So that was sort of the Texas thinking behind this, was that, well, if you put it on a platform, hey, we're not violating the implied thing that it should be smaller than the Washington Monument, but, if you want to count it from the real bottom to the top, it's a little bit larger. Yep, everything's bigger in Texas. Let's take a look at the star. It's designed so that you'll see 5 points no matter which direction you're at, although it actually has 9 points, 1 on the top, 4 in the middle, and 4 on the bottom. It's 220 tons and is 34 foot tall. You can see some of the original designs here, the schematics for it. And this is a look from inside the tower, looking out underneath the legs of the star. There are a couple of cemeteries on the battlegrounds, and Lorenzo de Zavala, the first vice president of the Republic of Texas, is buried in one of them. And at the base of the monument is a building which has engravings on all sides of it which describe what happened here at the Battle of San Jacinto and Texas independence. And it has some artwork as well on the sides. There's 8 sides out there. And then at the entrance, you can see the museum. Once you go inside the building there, they have all kinds of artifacts, things that actually were from the battle itself, various spots in Texas. They have a nice theater where you can go inside and see a couple of movies that they have made about the battle for Texas independence, and specifically about the San Jacinto battlegrounds. And on those occasions when it's open, it's not always open, but on those occasions when it's open and working, they do have an elevator that goes all the way up to the top. There's a nice observation deck up there, and you can look out at the surrounding area. Now, the monument is in the middle of the petrochemical complex there for Houston along the ship channel, so you can see all the petroleum storage places out there. But overall, it is a beautiful sight, and the USS Texas is also out there, so you can get to see lots of things here at the San Jacinto Battlegrounds and Monument. Thank you very much for watching this video. Please feel free to make comments below as long as the language is family friendly. And if you like this video, please click on the thumbs up button below. You can also subscribe to my YouTube channel by clicking on the circle with my picture in it in the lower right hand corner of the video. The arrow is pointing at it now. And once you have subscribed, you can be notified of when I have a new video posted by clicking on the bell icon in the description field below the video. Thanks again for watching.